Wizards of the Coast has just released the newest wave of Streets of New Capenna spoilers, and there's some crazy awesome stuff in there, specifically big fat beefy boys, so I hope you like your beef.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for some more New Capenna spoiler action. This time, we're getting heavy into the beef. We've got the biggest, the most beautiful, and the most fun beefy boys. So let's dive right in. So the first mega beef boy we're starting out with today is Ziatora's Envoy. 1 green, 1 red, 1 black, and a generic mana gets you a 5/4 Viashina warrior with trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top card of your library. You may play a land from the top of your library or cast a spell with mana value less than or equal to the damage dealt from the top of your library without paying its mana cost. If you don't, put that card into your hand. Man, this is wordy, but a very sweet effect. And the creature also has a blitz on top of it, so you can just swing out with it in a blitz if you want. Haste, sack it, draw a card. So you can have this swing on your opponent completely unexpectedly. But for me, honestly, just putting it on the board regularly and using it over and over is going to net incredible results. Like, this card is definitely 100% going into my cube. It's absolutely great, right? You deal 5 damage to your opponent if it doesn't get blocked. You're going to either get to play a land off the top of your deck, play a spell that costs 5 or less for free, or you get to draw a card. And basically, if you have a land on top of your deck, you don't have to play it from the top of your deck. For some reason, let's say you have a card that cares about you playing lands from your hand, then you can go, you know what, I'll draw this and play it as my land drop. Or you can get extra land drops out by playing your normal land, then swing with this creature and play a land off the top of your deck. And the fact that it has trample means you're probably going to be getting some nice stuff out of this. Most likely you're going to be able to connect with your opponent at least a few times. Now, the crazy thing to me is Magic has become so powerful with its cards that when I look at this, it feels really strong to me, but I ultimately don't know if it's even strong enough to make a dent in Standard. It's kind of a statement of the power level of Standard and Magic overall, right? I mean, yes, it is 3 different colors, which is why they're able to give it so much for so little in terms of the casting cost, but at the same time, the casting cost is super restrictive. You got to be playing those 3 colors. So it remains to be seen whether this card will actually make a genuine impact on the format, but you can see in the artwork that this Envoy has made a massive impact where they have shown up. It's kind of not noticeable at first, at least it wasn't to me. The entire door that's been torn asunder, right? The Envoy has a very striking presence standing there in the middle with this glowing warhammer slung casually over one shoulder while they're basically reading these ledgers. It's like they walked into this place, slammed the door apart with the hammer, it broke into 2 gigantic fragments, and then they just grabbed what they want. Yeah, I'm taking a look at this. In fact, the guy sitting down on the ground might have been the one holding that book, and the Envoy just, give me that, and shoved him down while he's sitting on the ground going, hey, give that back. It just really gives a sense of power. The whole sort of like, I'm slowly walking off with what I want, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the item that's being held in the lizard man's hand totally does equal, oh, this is the you getting to draw a card or whatever resource concept, like coming back with something. So this is a solid beefy boy, and we have a number of solid beefy boys. Let's talk about the next one, the Workshop War Chief. Mono green goodness. 2 green and 3, 5/3 Rhino Warrior. It's got trample. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. When it dies, create a 4/4 green Rhino Warrior creature token, and it has Blitz. So if you want to, you can pay 6 mana, have it swing in with haste, gain 3 life, and then it's going to pop out. You're going to get a 4/4 Rhino and get to draw off of the Blitz, right? So, I mean, there is a lot tacked in here. What is the creature? I'm trying to think of, there's one in Magic's Past that really feels similar. Thragtusk. Thragtusk is the one that gives you life, and when it goes, makes a token. The numbers are slightly tweaked in terms of the life and the token size, but this has heavy Thragtusk vibes. And it also has a fun joke built in, because this Rhino has a gigantic wrench. And when I look at the wrench and the way he's holding it, I think of dodgeball. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Where Buddy's just whipping a bag of wrenches at people, wrench after wrench. If you haven't seen it, that movie is genuinely hilarious, and ultimately the kind of movie that they wouldn't really be able to easily make nowadays. It'd be harder to make a movie like that. But yeah, this to me is Dodgeball Man. A second after this like scene we see here, he's throwing the wrench. Hey, wait a minute. Is that him in the background too? Is he standing in front of a painting of himself holding a wrench? That's amazing. It is. That's so cool. All right, that's some silliness. I dig it. And I dig just how beefy the card is. This is really solid, right? Speaking of solid, we're going to turn to a non-beefy card before we get back to the beef. And that is Patch Up. 1 white and 2 for a sorcery that says, return up to 3 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Oh, you know what? Actually, since we're speaking of mana value, I want to offer a point of clarification from yesterday. Yesterday, I said that mana value can vary. Let's say you have a card that's 1 green and a card that's 1 black. Those are 2 separate mana values. That was incorrect. Mana value is treated just like converted mana cost was. So mana value will just be the converted amount. So 1 green or 1 black, just both equal 1. All right? So this will allow you to pick 3 creatures in your graveyard who all of their casting costs together equal 3. So you could get 3 1 casting cost creatures back off of this sorcery, which is insane. Getting a 3 for 1 is really mathematically good for you, right? And the flavor behind it works really well. The idea of patch up, right? You're going to a street doctor, somebody who isn't a full-level surgeon. You're not going to be able to get the best medical care, but you are going to be able to get quick medical care, and more importantly, you're going to be able to get it done inconspicuously in some kind of back alley where nobody needs to know what happened. Why are these people injured? What were they involved in? No unnecessary questions get asked, right? So you've got a street dog here, and the idea of patching somebody up, it's like, I can't save you from super terminal stuff, right? But if you're some low-level guy with minor wounds, I can save you. So the fact that you can patch up either a couple of really smaller guys or 1 bigger guy works from the flavor. And also, the flavor text is great. It says, don't tell me who sent you or who you work for. The less I know, the better. And that is definitely the attitude you need to have to be a successful street dog. Not like that street dog in Shadowrun who set that cortex off in my mind. If you guys have played the Super Nintendo Shadowrun, you go to a street doctor. He's supposed to remove this cortex thing from your head so it doesn't make your head blow up. And instead he's like, oops, I just activated it, bro. You got like, I don't know, maybe like an hour. What are you doing? You know what I mean? So when I think of street doctors, I think of that. This guy seems more competent in the artwork. And I like the shadowy way he's standing there with light flowing out of his hand into the individual whose body's laying there with a cloth pulled back. Like they just came in and dumped him in. And it's like, you got to bring Henry back. And you have a dude kind of like watching the door as well. And the curtain. It's just this shadowy enterprise. It has the right feel for new Capenna. You know what I mean? Now, let's return to beef, and crazy beef for blue. The kind of card that you'd never see back in the day. It seems insane. Reservoir Kraken. This is the reference to Reservoir Dogs, but instead of a dog, it's a Kraken. Looking back on the track. Anyways, 2 blue and 2 for a 6/6 Trample Ward 2. 6/6 for 4 mana with Trample Ward 2. Alright, so where's the downside? The downside is kind of built into the other ability. At the beginning of each combat, if Reservoir Kraken is untapped, Any opponent may tap an untapped creature they control. If they do, tap Reservoir Kraken, and they create a 1/1 blue fish creature token with this creature can't be blocked. So here's how it works. If I have the Kraken out and I'm going to swing on you, you have the option to go, okay, combat's about to start. I'm going to tap one of my untapped creatures. Now you have to tap the Kraken. But if you do that, then I get to create a 1/1 fish token that is unblockable. So this is in some ways kind of got the same vibe as like a Clackbridge Troll or a Desecration Demon, where your opponent has the control over whether you're really going to be able to swing in with it. Kind of actually similar to the big heavy bruiser guy we saw either in the last video or the video before, where basically your opponent can choose to have him on tap, take him out of combat, and you get to draw a card. It's in a similar vein, where your opponent has control over the combat, but in exchange for control over the combat, they are giving you more resources. And obviously, Reservoir Kraken becomes even more insane if your opponent just doesn't have any creatures out. If you can keep your opponent's creatures tapped down, if you can keep their opponent's creatures off the board, the Kraken's a house. 4 mana for 6/6, and they've got to pay 2 extra mana for any spells they want to use to destroy it, is going to make it difficult to tangle with. And it has that inevitability. Every time you choose to tap it down, you end up creating an unblockable token that you just can't deal with. So this Kraken just starts firing fish out. It's a crazy beast, actually. If you think about the flavor concept behind it, an individual is being sent out, I guess, to distract it. It's such a single-minded being trapped in the reservoir of New Capenna that it just wants to smash and destroy any life. And maybe the fact that it's got this reservoir to hide in is where that warding ability comes from too. But if you take a look at the artwork, what appears to be happening in the bottom left corner, it looks like there's an individual who's just booking it, running for their life to escape from the Kraken, while the Kraken is just slapping around with its big tentacle action. Honestly, a really funky card and a really strong blue card. It doesn't feel like it'd be too hard to make this card work at full capacity. Now, let us talk about another card that feels like a beefy warrior to me, and that is Ognis the Dragon's Lash. And this is another one of those weird hybrid cards where you can pay a hybrid red and green, a red, or a hybrid red and black and 1, right? So it could theoretically just be cast as mono red as well. You could go 1 and 3 red to do it. Now, it is a 3/3 haste Viashina Warrior legendary creature. Whenever a creature you control with haste attacks, create a tapped treasure token. This has a lot of speed built into this concept, right? If you're playing with a ton of hasty creatures, you're swinging in hard. But every time you swing in with haste, you're getting an additional treasure token. Now they're tapped, which I guess makes sense because when you're swinging them with haste and whatever and getting these treasure tokens, if they weren't tapped, it would most likely just be straight up too much acceleration, right? I do like the idea of having treasure tokens come into play tapped because it literally stops you from being able to use them for the first turn, but you can still benefit from them if you have other cards that care about artifacts and whatever. So it's a great way to actually take the power level down specifically of treasure tokens by making them inert for the first turn. And this is the first set where we've seen that concept being utilized, and I expect to see it going forwards. I'm not sure like when they came up with this concept, but it's a really good one. And Ognis looks super intense, right? I mean, charging in, arms back, mouth forward, blasting out this noxious, I don't know, is that supposed to be like dragon's breath? Are we talking about some sort of gas, possibly like chlorine or something else noxious like that? I don't know. Whatever it is, I have to admit, Ognis feels beefier than a 3/3. When I look at this overall, the flavor and the concept, this feels like a bigger creature to me, but definitely counts as beef. Now, we're going to end off with a card that is very interesting to me. This isn't a beef card. This is Incandescent Aria. 1 white, 1 green, and 1 red for a sorcery that deals 3 damage to each non-token creature. Now, we have multiple board wipes showing up in New Capenna. There are a lot of them, and this is another one. It's interesting that it specifically does 3 damage through a song, though. The flavor text says, as the assassins converged on Kit Canto, she struck a high note and held it unbroken for nearly a minute. When the room fell silent, she was surrounded only by rose petals, falling gently to the floor. This is an amazing concept. It kind of plays on the, I can hit a high note and use it to shatter glass, but instead it literally shatters people's existence. Is it shattering their bones inside of them and then pulling them down into whatever like nether zone this is? Because you can see an individual being subsumed by the floor, eyes closed, while like light energy that almost looks like the body of a fairy, actually. If you look at it, you can make out what looks like the body of a fae almost on top of his head, pushing him down. Now, I don't think that's intentional. I think that's just sort of that Rorschach block sort of, oh, I look at it and I see that. What's really going on is the magic is just forcing this individual down into non-existence and converting them into rose petals. So either they're being pushed down into the floor or magic is flowing upwards and converting them into rose petals while the lightning flares down. I'm not exactly sure how the conversion is happening, but it's really, really crazy. Singing people out of existence is a wild concept. And if you didn't know, Kit Canto actually has a full-on origin story in New Capenna. I just put out a lore video covering her entire origin story, and it's great. So if you want to know more about Kit Canto, enjoy some New Capenna lore, the link's on the screen right now for you. Big thanks to all my patrons, and I will see you, my friends, in the next video.